Well, Senator, thank you very much. You are very kind. I appreciate it. It's a pleasure to be here. Much rather spend a morning in Indiana than a morning in Washington, for sure. Although I could do without the snow as a Minnesota boy. First time I've seen it this season. But thank you. Thank you for being an ally. Thank you for being a voice of sanity. Thank you for being principled yet pragmatic. Looking down the dais of the Senate Armed Services Committee when we get to you and to those seated next to you. Not that I don't love everybody on the Senate Armed Services Committee. Of course we do. I appreciate the clear-eyed view you take of the world and the support you have for President Trump and America First. It's clear, and from day one, so thank you very much. It's also, you mentioned the confirmation process, which as you know, went down to a 50-50 vote in the Senate. My kids were there with me. He just reminded me of that. And they went out, Mark Wayne Mullen, another member of the Senate Armed Services Committee, took my kids out to the forum to watch the vote. And they came back in after the vice president came with his motorcade and broke the tie. And I said, kids, what do you think about, we did it. We broke the tie. He goes, no, Dad, you didn't break the tie. You won in overtime. I kind of like that framing better from the kiddos. So thank you for what all of you do. I know there's so many folks here in industry that support the efforts here in Indiana and across the country. And it's a reminder of the importance of the defense industrial base to the heartland and the importance of the heartland to the defense industrial base. I'm here today to talk a little bit of specifics, but even more broadly about the priorities of President Trump, the Department of War. It happens to be 1 year ago today that President Trump announced my name as his choice for then the Secretary of Defense. 1 year. Barely believe it. I'll never forget walking out of his office on the second floor of Mar-a-Lago, or walking in the middle of it, where he said two things. He said, first of all, Pete, you're going to have to be tough as shit. Proved to be true. He also said, I need you to bring the warrior spirit back to the military. We need the warrior spirit back. And that has been our guidepost, as the senator mentioned, from the beginning. I mean, I could lay out the 10 points, and it's been America first, peace through strength, common sense, revive the warrior ethos, rebuild the military, reestablish deterrence. We're going to defend the homeland. We're going to deter China. We're going to make sure our allies do their part in burden sharing, and we're going to revive the defense industrial base. That's 10 points, general overview of what the president prescribed us to do, what the Department of War has been focused on, and the urgent threats that we need to orient on. That's the overview of what a golden age of American warfighting looks like. Now, our top priority, as the president has charted the course, is America first. Go on to the days of nation building or deferring to globalist organizations. Everything we do is America first. And so if America first is our founding principle, then peace through strength is our tried and true playbook. And President Trump understands this like no president since Teddy Roosevelt. The motto of my first platoon, and I think there's value, the senator himself served in Afghanistan, led men. There's value to our generation of troops now having an opportunity to lead. I never thought I'd put the motto of my first platoon to good use. But 1st Platoon, Charlie Company, 2nd of the 113th, New Jersey National Guard, Guantanamo Bay, 2004 to 2005. Our motto was, those who long for peace must prepare for war. And our logo was actually a giant peace sign in barbed wire. Warriors have repeated that motto since the 4th century Rome, including George Washington, the first leader of our War Department. And that's why we restored the name of the Department of Defense to the Department of War for clarity, not because we want war, but because we must be fully prepared to wage it. And since waging war is so costly, we owe our republic a military that can win any war we fight. And our adversaries have to believe that we're capable and willing to fight and win that war, which is what leads to actual deterrence. That's peace through strength. Should our enemies choose to challenge us, they will be crushed by the violence and the precision of the War Department. These are not academic and theoretical concepts. They have to be real. It has to be real hard power, and the enemy has to believe you'll use it in order to prevent them from taking action. And certainly it's not theoretical right now. This feels like a 1939 type moment, or hopefully a 1981 type moment, where America needs to lead and rebuild to ensure that we maintain that peace through strength. Enemies are gathering and threats are growing. We have to prepare now. So if you're putting America first and the roadmap is peace through strength, the third ingredient President Trump has injected is good old-fashioned Indiana common sense. Common sense is back at the White House and it's back at the Pentagon. Common sense means putting warfighting, lethality, as the senator mentioned, training, discipline, accountability, readiness at the forefront of everything we do at the Department of War. That means no more social justice, no more political correctness, no more toxic ideological garbage that infected the department. As I've said before, but we repeat and we repeat, because as a good old television host, you know it takes a while for it to actually sink in. No more identity months, no more DEI offices, no more dudes in dresses. No more climate change. It actually was a thing. It actually was a thing. No more climate change worship, no more division, no more delusions, gender delusions or quotas, no more distraction. As the chairman of the Joint Chiefs puts it, Pete, you're clearing out the debris. That's what it is. We're clearing out the debris from out front of NCOs and officers. We're done with that stuff. It doesn't take a PhD to understand that sergeants don't need sensitivity training. But we're taking the next step. We're not just undoing damage, we're solidifying the way forward. We're taking concrete steps to ensure that common sense reigns going forward. We're restoring a ruthless, dispassionate, and common sense application of standards. I introduced a golden rule test in a speech I gave at Quantico to a number of generals and senior enlisted. It is, do unto your formations that which you would have done unto your sons. Would you put your son or your daughter into the type of formation you are creating? It's a very clarifying rule. So I don't want my son serving alongside troops who are fat and out of shape, or in combat units with females who can't meet the same combat arms physical standards as men in their units. Standards must be uniform, gender neutral, and high. It's simple. It's colorblind, gender neutral, merit-based. I say colorblind, gender neutral, merit-based. That's what the military should be. Because if they're not standards, then they're just suggestions. Suggestions that get our sons and daughters killed in combat. And that's why I've directed every service to ensure that every requirement and every combat MOS returns to the highest male standard only. One standard across those combat jobs. If females make it, fantastic. Then they're most qualified for that position. If not, then so be it. It's not about what gender makes it into what position. It's, are the standards meet the duty and the position? Because a body on a battlefield or a .155 round weighs the same whether you're a man or a woman. So in line with POTUS's common sense agenda, the first item of what we're undertaking inside the Department of War is restoring the warrior ethos. So a lot of what I just said falls into the category of restoring the warrior ethos. And it's up and down the ranks. As I mentioned, that speech at Quantico, whether you're an airborne ranger or a chairborne ranger, a brand new private or a 4-star general in the Pentagon, you need to meet height and weight standards and pass a PT test twice a year. I also said, we don't need to be in military of beardos anymore. Do you know how many troops claim to be Nordic pagan? No, suddenly it's become like this real fake religious affiliation inside the Pentagon where troops claim to be Nordic pagan so they can grow a beard, and no one challenges them on it because no one's upheld standards for a long time. So now a quarter of the platoon is sporting beards because they're now suddenly Nordic pagans. We're not doing that stuff anymore. The idea is, it's sort of the broken windows theory of policing. There'll be some people that say, well, Pete, why would a secretary care about beards and PT standards? It's the same thing. Well, why would a mayor of New York care about squeegee men or about broken windows? It's because when you let the small things go, you create a climate of criminality. But when you let the small things go inside your formations, you create a climate of a lack of discipline, where standards cannot be enforced. And if you can't enforce them on the small things, it gets far more difficult to enforce them on even more meaningful things. And so when commanders and NCOs are not empowered to enforce discipline and standards, instead they're called toxic. Now the entire command structure is flipped upside down. And what happens when directives have to be given in combat when bullets are flying? When you need directives to be clear and you need them to be followed. That's why those things in peacetime matter and they become a reflex in wartime. We're also ending what has become a risk-averse culture. NCOs and commanders no longer have to walk on eggshells, that's the phrase that we've used, for fear of compromising a blemish-free record. You see, blemish-free records are great in peacetime, but they don't work in wartime. So we're overhauling the Inspector General, the EO, and MEO processes so they cannot be weaponized. See, these processes have been weaponized to put complainers, ideologues, and underperformers in the driver's seat. I spent a year writing a book called The War on Warriors before I took this job, where I spent Saturday afternoons at Fox calling members of the military, every rank, every background, every service, asking them what works, what doesn't, what's going wrong in the military. And time again, they came back to command climate. It's impossible to be a commander right now because the minute you enforce a standard, you're called toxic and someone drops an IG complaint on you and you can't get promoted, you can't move on, and you're not empowered to enforce standards. We're changing that entire paradigm. We're reviewing and flipping the entire IG process. Sure, you still can't be racist or sexist. Like, it's been illegal to be racist in the military since 1948. Those things remain and those things are clear. But officers simply upholding high standards that promote the warrior culture are not toxic. And we're no longer are going to be subjected to drawn out, weaponized, unfair investigations that are never anonymous complaints that go on for months and they can't do their job. There's a big difference between something that's anonymous and something that's carefully handled or close hold, confidential. And we've worked with the services, with the joint staff across OSW to put in place a process that ensures that you can approach the IG if necessary, but commanders are empowered throughout. So that's restoring the warrior ethos. Number two is rebuilding the military. Our warriors, I mean, as the president points out, and he's right, we have the strongest, most capable, most lethal military in the world, full stop. No one can touch us. But if we're going to maintain that and put the best weapons, ships, and aircrafts and platforms in the hands of our men and women, we've got a lot of work to do, here in Indiana and across the country to get things on time and at scale. So when I think of rebuilding the military, we think of places like NSA Crane. Right here in Indiana, the third largest naval installation in the world. I can't lie. I mean, the first time I met with Senator Banks and he told me about Crane, I said, wait, the third largest naval institution in the world is in Indiana? Okay. But then when you add it all up and you look at the industry and you look at the history, it all makes sense. And then you look at the capability of what's produced here. Crane embodies the warrior ethos, committed to unwavering dedication and readiness in the face of any challenge. Over time, it's become a go-to, as he mentioned, on drone warfare and hypersonics and microelectronics, rapidly transitioning these innovations to the warfighter. We're going to need more places like Crane, and we're going to need them quickly. To achieve the historic rebuilding that President Trump has mandated us to undertake, we have to liberate our bureaucracy and fundamentally change the way we do acquisitions. Seated over here is Mike Duffy. He's the head of A&S, Acquisitions and Sustainment at the Department of War. And from the beginning, he and I have worked together. He and his team have taken the lead in saying, how do we fundamentally transform how we acquire and buy and develop weapon systems? And it manifests in a speech on Friday of last week at Fort McNair, where I spoke to military officers, defense industry executives, members of Congress, and others to announce those reforms. It's been a long time coming, actually. The last time there was a major acquisitions reform effort was Secretary Rumsfeld, and he announced it on September 10th of 2001. Needless to say, many of those reform efforts were overtaken by the events that happened the very next day on 9/11. We're continuing in that lineage, undertaking a department-wide transformation of requirements, acquisitions, and foreign military sales. We're addressing a core function of what we do at the War Department, identifying what our warfighters need, how we buy those capabilities, and then how we share those capabilities with allies and partners, which in a contested world is becoming even more important. You know this. I don't have to tell you this. For far too long, our department's been bogged down by burdensome and inefficient processes, paralyzed by impossible risk thresholds and requirements, and distracted by agendas that have nothing to do with warfighting. And every dollar squandered on redundancy, bureaucracy, and waste is a dollar that could be used for something meaningful. So the objective is quite simple: transform the entire acquisition system to operate at a wartime or warp speed footing, to rapidly accelerate the fielding of capabilities and focus on results. The objective is rebuilding the arsenal of freedom. Rebuilding the arsenal of freedom. American industry and its innovative spirit are begging to be unleashed to solve our most complex and dangerous warfighting problems. By the way, this task of transformation will be a war of attrition. The Pentagon's going to fight back. The bureaucracy's going to fight back. The powerful primes will fight back. And it's our job every hour, every day, every week, every month with our team to return fire, overwhelming fire, and say, no, this is how we're changing the paradigm. We're opening the aperture on speed, on competition, on scale, on commercial first, because the warfighters need it, and they need it now. Industry needs to perceive business with the Department of War from a perspective of growth and assume risk to partner with the United States. We're talking about transformation, not toothless reform, and we're talking about it fast. Because our adversaries are not sitting idly by, and their ambitions and intentions are clear. Now is the time. Here are the 5 overarching transformative pillars for our procurement process. First, we have to stabilize demand signals. We will award companies bigger, longer contracts for proven systems so those companies can be confident in investing more to grow the industrial base that supplies our weapons systems. More and faster. And that's good for big guys, small guys, and everything in between. More, faster. Second, we will prioritize the purchase of industry-driven solutions, commercial solutions that meet our need to be faster, even if it doesn't meet every requirement. It means that we're open to buying the 85% solution and iterate together to achieve the 100% solution, because an 85% solution tomorrow is a lot better than a 100% solution that is never in the hands of a warfighter. It also means there will be no non-compliant bids. Third, we will empower our program leaders with the control, expertise, and authority to direct program outcomes, move money, and quickly adjust the priority of required system performance to deliver on time and under budget. Fourth, we will inject urgency and excellence into the defense industrial base. We're only going to do business with industry partners that share our priority on speed and volume above all else, who are willing to surge American-made manufacturing at the speed of ingenuity to deliver rapidly and reliably for our warfighters. And then fifth, we're undertaking regulatory reform, removing excessive and burdensome FAR and DFARS rules, reporting requirements, accounting standards, excessive testing oversight, and excessively long studies and analysis. Some of the things that used to take us 3 to 8 years through requirements and acquisitions now should take under a year. And we're talking budget cycle speed. Anything that unnecessarily slows down government contracts will be eliminated. So the bottom line is these changes will move us from a current prime contractor-dominated system defined by limited competition, vendor lock, cost-plus contracts, stressed budgets, and frustrating protests, always a protest, to a future powered by a dynamic vendor space that accelerates production by combining investment at a commercial pace with a uniquely American ability to scale quickly. We're going to rebuild our defense industrial base into a new arsenal of freedom, which I know is welcome news to everyone in this room. We're committed to becoming a better customer and empowering firms that are ready to take risks, deliver on time, and innovate. So you've got the warrior ethos, rebuilding the military, and finally, of the 3 internal reforms at our department, reestablishing deterrence. You all know for far too long, especially under the Biden administration, the military looked woke and weak, and it invited aggression on the world stage. Under the Biden administration, our adversaries expanded in Eastern Europe, in Ukraine, in the Middle East, in what happened on October 7th, in Southeast Asia, and Central and South America. The debacle in Afghanistan set the stage for a lot of it. By the way, I'm getting an update again next week from our Afghan task force looking into what happened there, and we will be releasing that in 2026. Our enemy knew that they could get away with these things because Biden was feckless. The department looked feckless and was. But under President Trump, deterrence is back. After decades of securing other people's borders halfway across the world, we're finally securing our own border in our own hemisphere. An invasion of over 20 million people from around the world with no idea who they are is a serious and dramatic national security threat. That's why we're happy to support mass deportations as well of our friends in federal law enforcement. But we've also surged our posture to the southern border from minute one to lock that border down. Our goal is 100% operational control of the southern border, and every passing day we get that much closer. Cartels, trafficking, and death, all of it across the border ends. In fact, for the past 5 months, as I hope you've heard, there have been 0 crossings across our southern border. We know who's coming in. Let me tell you, the morale of the troops down there, I've gone down there a number of times to meet with the troops, to be defending our own homeland, securing our own border in a real world context with real authorities to do so, partnering with Border Patrol and Mexican Border Patrol on the other side is motivating. Our men and women down there love what they're doing, and that's why we revived the 1918 Mexican Border Medal to pin on their chest when they're done with a 6-month tour down there securing the border. These are not guys, with binoculars who don't have actual authorities. These are, striker platoons with vehicles and optics able to come alongside Border Patrol and assist in arrest of those coming across our border and lock it down. And eventually, more funding will lead to more infrastructure, more border wall, which will require less of a footprint, but even the same amount of a lockdown. We're also taking the fight on the deterrence front to cartels. My advice to foreign terrorist organizations: do not get in a boat. I mean, if you're trafficking drugs to poison the American people, and we know you're from a designated terrorist organization, you're a foreign terrorist and a trafficker, we will find you and we will kill you. No one is better. No one is better at tracking and networking and mapping and hunting than the American military. Honing those skills for many decades in foreign lands. Now we're doing it in defense of the American people with all the authorities. We got lawyers on lawyers. All the authorities necessary to do so, treating these terrorists like the Al-Qaeda of the Western Hemisphere. And we're seeing in real time that they're changing their methods and will adapt as they change those methods. But again, another signal of deterrence, locking down the border, taking on the cartels and stopping the poisoning of the American people. A great example as well is Operation Midnight Hammer. What our B-2 pilots did over 37 hours, going all the way from Missouri and back, going into Iranian airspace with, there were 52 refuelers and fighters in front of them, all the maintainers, incredible Americans who maintained the entire thing. But to go into an adversary's country, drop 14 precision 30,000-pound bombs into holes the size of this podium, and then turn around and leave Iranian airspace, and there wasn't a single news article, tweet, or reaction from the Iranian government, gives you a sense of what the American military is capable of. No, it was one of my favorite moments when we're in the Situation Room and we realized the bombers are out of Iranian airspace and all the targets have been hit successfully, and the president realizes that he gets to announce it before the world finds out, and he just turned to his assistant, we're all there, he goes, "Get me my phone." And he went, boop, and the world knew. But imagine the power of the signal of that truth, of the fact that the president had said, Iran, you have 60 days. And then on the 60-day mark, bombs dropped on their facilities, destroying Fordow, Esfahan, and Natanz. 60 days to the day, bombs drop. America says we'll do something, we follow through. Iran, he's said from the beginning, Iran will not have a nuclear weapon. He gave them 60 days. They didn't comply. The B-2s took care of business. The world sees that America's word matters. Another example of that that's often forgotten is the Houthis. Since, I don't know, would it be Thomas Jefferson? Our ships have been able to sail at the high seas without us accepting interdiction or pirates or those ships being threatened. The idea that freedom of navigation, American freedom of navigation was sort of taken as a given. Until under the Biden administration, Houthis started shooting at our ships and, I don't know, we shot a few missiles into some huts, but didn't do anything about it, just accepted the fact that we can't sail there anymore. And when President Trump came into office, he said, no, we're going to reestablish freedom of navigation. And so we dropped bombs on the Houthis for 45 days until they cried uncle, and now our ships sail wherever we want. That is a reestablishment of deterrence, that you do not tangle with the United States Navy or Air Force or our people. And if you do, you will get the vengeance of the United States military until we get our way and our ships sail freely. All of these things are reestablishments of deterrence that had to be done given the backsliding of what occurred during the Biden administration. Now, we're also reestablishing deterrence, as the Senator mentioned, in the Indo-Pacific and around the world. We're supporting allies and partners out there as force multipliers to strengthen their own capabilities. In March, I took my first trip to the Indo-Pacific as Secretary and the first trip to Guam in 20 years from a Secretary of Defense or Secretary of War. I traveled to the Philippines, to Korea, to Japan, to Singapore, to Vietnam, to Malaysia. We are deterring China's influence around the world, not to mention the Panama Canal, where we're freeing that canal from malign Chinese influence, ensuring that American ships can sail freely. We're also increasing the burden sharing of our allies. I think a huge signature of what the Trump administration, what President Trump's been able to do in his first term and the second term is reawakening NATO to their actual mission. You're not an alliance if you don't have capabilities. And if you're not willing to spend on your own militaries and you're dependent on the United States, you're not actually able to step up when an adversary threatens you. Yes, Ukraine was a wake-up call for Europe, but more significantly, it was President Trump saying, you need to pay up. It's not enough just a free ride on us. I mean, what happened in June from President Trump in NATO members committing to 5%, 3.5% of hard military spending and 1.5% in infrastructure is historic. If America's going to have to take the primary burden of what happens in the Indo-Pacific and deterring China, then Europe needs to be prepared to step up in its own continent and ensure that forces like Russia or others are checked properly. It's common sense. You can't be everywhere. And finally, I'll end again kind of where we started with the defense industrial base. Decades of underinvestment and nonsensical bureaucracy and unstable demand signals have left us at a place where we're too reliant on too few, and what we do get is, yes, exquisite, but can't scale. We're just at a point where if we needed to rebuild, as we are right now, the arsenal of freedom, we have to make fundamental changes. So we're revitalizing American industry broadly. President Trump is through his golden age. And at the Pentagon, we are ensuring that we maintain the most powerful military in the world. You can talk strategy all you want about homeland and hemisphere and deterring China and burden sharing. That's all briefs nicely on a white paper. But if you can't actually build the things you need to underwrite it, it's all an academic exercise. And that's why defense industrial base has been a top priority of ours from day one. So we're restoring the warrior ethos, we're rebuilding our military, we're reestablishing deterrence, and we have a president of the United States who has the backs of our warfighters. That's what I tell the troops every time I'm traveling. It's all I ever wanted as a young lieutenant was to know that my commander had my back. At any echelon, when we had to do difficult things in the dead of night where you make decisions at a split second, you're not always going to make the right decision. But if you're doing it for the right reasons on behalf of the troops and the mission, then your commander ought to have your back. You see that with law enforcement. You see that with Border Patrol. You see that with our troops. When you have a commander-in-chief and a leader with a steel spine who has their back, they're empowered to make communities secure and safe. They're empowered to secure the border. They're empowered to deport dangerous illegals, or they're empowered to close with and destroy the enemy. And that's why a lot of what I've done as well is untied the hands of combatant commanders and allowed them to make decisions at their level to deal with and hunt down enemies of the United States, many of which the American people don't hear about in the newspapers. But it ensures that our warfighters are able to go out and do what they need to do to keep all of you safe. So in this new era for the defense industrial base, we're going to take risks, we're going to optimize for speed, we're going to compete, and we're going to scale. For the firms used to the old way, who refuse to take risks and innovate, we wish them well in their future outside of the Pentagon. But to the rest of you, we look forward to partnering with you to supply our warfighters and rebuild our military. Washington can be a tricky place, but not when you know why you're there and what you were sent there to do, and you lock arms with people who share those same perspectives. President Trump sets the tone. My job, I've got two basic principles. Don't talk to the media unless you have to, because all they do is spin, spin, spin. And then just do your job. Just do the job you have. And the job I was given by President Trump is to be the Secretary of Defense and now the Secretary of War, to deliver on behalf of warfighters. That's it. There's no other games to be played in Washington, D.C. And so when you have allies, and you need allies in that effort, and I'll tell you what you have here in Indiana, in the good Senator Banks is an incredible ally, who we know we can call when tough decisions have to be made, or he has to stand there shoulder to shoulder with us or help explain the reforms that we're undertaking. It's critical. And you learn real quick in Washington who your real friends are, who will actually go to bat, and whose core is grounded in what needs to be done in that moment to advance America first and peace through strength. So, Senator Banks, I want to thank you for being that ally to us at the Department of War. From day one, from the announcement to the confirmation to everything in between to the reforms that we're undertaking, you've been rock solid. And I want to thank you for that. So there's so many defense executives out here who make exquisite and important things that we utilize. Thank you for what you're doing. This ought to be a golden age for you as well. We want you to run, and we want you to run fast. We need you. We will be the most powerful force in the world 5, 10, 15, 20, 25 years from now, because we have no other alternative. There's no one else to call. You've all been around the world and back, and so have I. It's only America. It's only our arsenal of freedom. It's only our military that's going to ensure that the 21st century is a free century and that peace is maintained for the American citizens. It's only us. Now's our time to step up, and I'm honored to do my small part. Thank you very much.